So we've been talking about the keys to prosper on TikTok a lot, and I'm just grateful for the way that the community has jumped into this discussion, has asked questions about it, is working on it, and I want to spend more time talking about that revelation, where it came from, how it's changed my life, and there's been a lot of people that have asked about you. So for the listening, watching audience, is my wife Hope Anderson.
Hello.
We've been married be 20 years in June. And so the stories that you've heard me tell, she lived all those and has her own stories, and some maybe even more extreme than mine. And so this reconstitution of the Increase podcast is just for us to spend some more time talking more in depth than we can in some of the shorter TikTok form, to flesh out, work out the stories, the more detail of the stories that we tell, sharing probably some transparent things with the audience, and kind of at times teaching some of the concepts in more depth, but also just kind of pulling them apart with our own experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And so my hope is that you will be willing and have the courage to share some of those deep dark things,
Oh, yeah.
because I've found that when we are willing to go there, we give someone a context for where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't share our mistakes, our failures, the depth of it, then there are people stuck in places that they think that they did something wrong, or they think there's no way out. But when they hear, like, maybe our situation was uglier than theirs, they realize, okay, I have permission, And another thing is, there's unfortunately a lot of people, I was thinking about this last night, there's a lot of people who have kind of deceived themselves because they're afraid of the hard work in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you keep making excuses, you can't go anywhere. You stay stuck.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need someone to say and recognize where maybe they made those failures, so that you have kind of the grid or the lens or the mirror to see it operational in your own life, so you can start making the adjustments.
Mm-hmm. I've heard it said you can't go past where you grow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hold this microphone up a
Oh.
little bit more when you talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hello.
So I don't know, work that out again.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about if you want things on the outside, you have to become that on the inside. And so usually it's an internal work that the Lord takes us through before we really see the external results. And I feel like we've seen that with the keys to prosper. We went through the wilderness, and not to say we're completely on the other side of every single thing that we've worked through, but we went through a lot. And so, we're starting to see the fruit now of living according to these keys that He's given us.
Yeah. And so if someone's just catching up to the story, we talk in our family and have on our channels a lot about this wilderness experience, right? So where does that come from? We pull that from the Bible in the book of Exodus and the book of Joshua. And so just the quick recap is, the Israelites came to Egypt in the middle of a famine from their homeland, lived in Egypt for 400 years, ended up becoming kind of slaves to an Egyptian way, second class citizens, and were longing to go back to their homeland where they could be free again, cried out to the Lord. And after 400 years, God sends them a deliverer in the form of Moses, who leads them out.
Mm-hmm.
They leave Egypt, this place of bondage, and on their way to the promised land, but they don't realize that they're going to have to walk through a wilderness in order to get there. They spend a brief period in the wilderness, are able to look over into their promised land and see some things that scare the ever-loving crap out of them. And God says, well, you're not ready to go in. And they spend the next 40 years in Israel, in the wilderness, between the promised land and Egypt, wandering until the unbelief dies out, until they're ready to go in. And then they go into the promised land, and they don't roll out the red carpet for them. They have to fight for it. But ultimately, they overtake their land with the Lord's help, and they have this place where they're ruling and reigning and conquering, living abundant lives. And Paul writes in the New Testament that we read these stories to understand our life today.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've lived this. And, I think it started in 2012. You weren't home. I'm sitting, Scott Milky and I, a good friend of mine, we had been reading the Bible together, just like tearing our Bibles apart. And I prayed what I call like the most dangerous prayer. And if anybody's ever prayed this prayer, and I probably should have consulted with you first.
Mm-hmm.
And we prayed, I remember praying, this is June 2012, God, I really want to know you.
I came home right after you guys, like as you were finishing up meeting. I don't know where I was, but I remember I walked in, you guys were sitting at the dining room table, and it was like something had changed, and you were almost like giddy. You're like,
But I didn't know what I was
no.
asking for. See, I was asking for the promised land. I failed to recognize the pattern that there's a wilderness between your Egypt and your promised land. And so almost immediately over the next 6 months, our life got completely pulled apart and
Upended.
everything that we were doing got basically turned off.
Mm-hmm.
And so 2013, we'll just tell it quickly to work out the topic. We, shut down a business and we enter into a wilderness season that lasted 3.5 years at least. And it was ugly. Water getting turned off, lights getting turned off, almost foreclosed on, cars almost repossessed, not working vehicles.
Yeah, I was at home with a baby and a toddler, a phone that didn't work most of the time, no health insurance if they were to get hurt.
Right, and we had college degrees. Hope had a master's degree.
Yeah, you'd owned a business.
There shouldn't be any reason why our life looked like that, except the only thing that we could say is we are following God.
And it wasn't pretty.
No, and this will drive your Egyptian Christian friends. It will drive them crazy to watch you go through this because they're like, your life, if you are a Christian, it shouldn't look like this. You must be doing something wrong. And there was few people in our life that were able to tell us, no, you're doing everything right.
Mm-hmm.
You see,
very few.
Very few, yes, very few. See, God's got to lead you out of Egypt, and then he has to take Egypt out of you.
That's what the wilderness is for.
That's what the wilderness is for. Before you become new enough for him to give you a fresh revelation that will take you into your promised land, and you'll live a different life. But it doesn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you really have to be completely dismantled, like the old you, to really become new in him. And that's a process. It's like your spirit becomes new as soon as you're reborn in him. But then there's this whole process of like truly becoming, like dying to your flesh, becoming like Christ. And that takes a while. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
To the wilderness.
Yeah, right. Welcome to the wilderness. It is for you. And it is the best, hardest thing that could happen to you. Because in one way, you are going to be humbled and humiliated and then dismantled, and it will be excruciating. On the other hand, though, you can't get to your destiny without going through that place. And this is where our community is on TikTok. So if you're one of my TikTok followers, we've been talking about this wilderness season for a few months now, and a lot of you are there. And you're reaching out, and you have fantastic questions. And some of you are saying, no one's ever given me language for this. And I know we didn't have anybody in our life giving us language for that. And I still don't meet that many people that have language for this season of their life. But God has given us eyes to see this blueprint. And I don't believe that we're necessarily overly unique. I think this is common to this is a pattern. This is common to any person who says, I want to go there.
Yeah, when you're called out. And a lot of people were called out, but then you get into this wilderness season, you're like, well, I must have made a mistake. I must have not heard God right, because this isn't what I expected. It doesn't mean you weren't called, and it doesn't mean he's not going to take you there. It just means there's a process you're going to go through. Yeah,
I think Jesus says in the Bible, many are called, few are chosen. And really what that means is there's a call for everyone. God is trying to bring everyone out, but not everyone will make it. Right? You're chosen when you're ready. And it means you've had to have gone through the wilderness process and allowed it to work in you. Now, many people think like, how long does this have to last? Right? And you read the Bible, and the Israelites were there for
40 years.
40 years.
But they had an earlier opportunity, like really quickly, when they spied out the land. They could have gone in sooner, but because of the unbelief, it was like, well,
yeah. So I mean, so people say, how long does it last? How long were the Israelites in there? And you'd say
they were there than they wanted to be, but the right amount of time.
Well, people would say chronologically they were 40 years, but they were there until their unbelief died. That's really how long they were there. In God's time, in Kairos time, the time of the heart. It wasn't 40 years. It was, but it was until the unbelief died, because he says he was not going to allow that generation to go in. He needed a generation that didn't know the difference between good and evil.
That had childlike faith.
The childlike faith. They did see. Egypt is all about man's approval, getting a man to approve of you.
Mm-hmm.
The kingdom is about living free out of the place of your real calling and your purpose, and so you're dismantling this fear of man, in all the ways until the unbelief is gone. And so if everyone we talk to, they've been in the wilderness different periods of time. Some people decades, unfortunately. And I want to tell you, you may die there until you embrace the process that you're there for the unbelief to die.
Mm-hmm.
And you really do feel like you're going to die.
Yeah. And it's disorienting in the wilderness because you feel lost. I mean, you're all the things I feel like that and that you identify yourself with and through, all those things are taken from you and you're stripped bare down to almost like this nubbin of yourself, which is getting to the core of who you are, which was covered over by all these things that he's removing. But it's scary and it's disorienting and it's confusing.
Very. Yeah. And so if you don't have a grid for it, many people go back and forth into Egypt, back out, into Egypt, back out. Mm-hmm. They try to advance into the promised land and they're not ready. Mm-hmm. And they wonder, well, God gave me this business. Why isn't it prospering? They haven't let go of the things that can't go with you.
Yeah. The dross.
The dross that can't go with
fire.
You. Yeah. And so I feel like everything changed in our heart when God started talking about the keys to prosper.
Yes. And that was 2016. So we'd kind of already come out of the wilderness, but we still were like, okay,
we weren't out of the wilderness. Yeah. We just hadn't moved locations because, don't forget the Israelites, they followed the cloud by day, the fire by night. So when the cloud moved, they moved. Mm-hmm. And so they were wandering throughout this 40 years. It's like God would never let them stay long enough to really build anything permanent and get too comfortable. Why? Because he didn't want them to identify with anything new, right? They were working out of their Egypt and they weren't to really set down roots until where they belong. Well, we ended up here where we're at now. But still very much in the wilderness. And, at that point, knowing...
We experienced it a little differently because I felt so much like pressure where we were before in Durham because I was alone so much and we were broke as a joke. I mean, all that. When we moved here, I actually took a sigh of relief. Even though we weren't in the clear, it still felt like, okay, like the worst of it was over for me. But in a way, I almost think when we got here, that was some of the most disorienting time for you.
Yes.
Because then it was like no business, no work, no identity, completely wiped slate, wiped clean kind of living. And so you were sort of like, what now? And so remind me, like, how did it start to come? Like, how did he start giving you the keys in that time?
Yeah, so January 2016, I remember it was a day a lot like today, to be honest with you. It was in the morning. I'm sitting in front of the window upstairs, and I was having my Bible study.
Upstairs because we were living in the bonus room.
We were living
here.
in a guest room, which was my father's house at the time. So, guests in someone's house with no income. Yeah, humiliating, humbling, right? After having owned your own home, had your own business, married for many years, college degrees, master's degrees, 2 kids.
Living in someone else's bonus room.
Right. And so in this Bible study one day, the Lord spoke to me and said, if you'll do what I say, I'll make you a millionaire. Well, we didn't have anything, okay?
That's pretty good.
We didn't have anything. So I immediately perked up. I was like, okay, I'm listening, right? And it was amazing. In the wilderness season, you hear God like a pin drop, like really clear. And so during that season, like our relationship was very strong. Not to say it's not now, but it was just, I was so super heightened. Like I lived by every word that came out of his mouth.
Survival.
Because I couldn't, So he said, go to Luke chapter 17, verse 11. The really cool thing is when God tells you to go somewhere in the Bible and you don't know exactly where you're going, and then you open it and it's like,
oh my goodness.
Right. Yeah. So I go to Luke 17, verse 11. It's the beginning of a story, not in the middle, whatever. It's the very beginning. And so Jesus is walking through some town and there were 10 lepers and he cleansed them. And they ran off, and one comes back to say thank you. And the other, and he said,
like, where are the others?
Where did the others go? And God taught me about this key. The first key he called thanks. So this wasn't my idea. These weren't the names that I gave them. He said thanks. And the first key is really about gratitude. And that the first key is that you give thanks. And so, really delve into this. Now, the rest of the keys, he didn't give me all 7 that day. And when he said he go to Luke 17:11, he didn't say I'm giving you a 7 key revelation. He just says do this. And so I did it. And so it was very profound about gratitude and thanksgiving. And I remember I wasn't really grateful. I'm the guest in someone's house, having basically just lost my own. And
in your dad's house.
In my dad's house. So I'm like very vulnerable, feeling shamed and humiliated. But here my dad was opening his home, being discomforted and super gracious to allow us in. And God really convicted me. And I remember almost immediately you and I started treating this place like we were the butlers, like we wouldn't let us. Yeah,
stewards.
We didn't. I
Not
mean,
like we were messy before, but we really started like, okay, if the kids have played with toys and they're all over the living room floor, we're gonna all pick those
If my
up
dad had
afterwards.
dirty dishes in the sink, we washed them.
I
If he
remember
left
cleaning
something
the house
out,
like
we
it was
would
my
clean
own.
it.
Yeah.
We mowed the grass, we swept the floors, like
as we should have.
As we absolutely should have. But we were just broke and entitled.
Humiliated, yeah.
And didn't understand the importance of being grateful. So anyways, probably about a month later, he leads me to another Bible verse, Matthew 5, verse 9. And it says that blessed are the peacemakers, so they will be called the sons of God. And so at that time, I was doing a lot of word studies, and I looked into the original Greek word, and the word for peace was eirene, which didn't mean like calm and gentle. It meant order. So peace through order. And as God was began to then show us the importance of having your affairs in order, your relationships, your physical items, your car, your space, your house. And at the same time, it was amazing the way he would confirm his word this whole time. So at the same time, this book shows up. It was called Getting Things Done by David Allen. And
I to this day, I thank God for that book because I was all about physical order. Like I had that ingrained into me. Cleanliness is next to godliness. But in terms of spiritual order, relational order, all that, I was still getting there. But we would have so many fights about things being out of order physically, and it bothered me, which is a euphemism, and it ticked me off. And so that book, when he said, didn't he say like devour this book? You went after it, and I was like, yes, thank you, Lord.
Yeah, so this book shows up. I feel like the Lord says you need to devour this book. So I'm trying to start a business. I'm not really other working. I took this book to the library 3 days in a row, like it was my job. I got there as soon as I think we dropped Miles off at school, and I sat the rest of the day and I read this book and I implemented it to a T. It's a very practical book. It is probably the best book I've found on personal productivity.
What's the title again?
Getting Things Done by David Allen. And if you look into it, it's actual classic. It's really well known in entrepreneurial circles, and it's about the most tactical, practical productivity. There's a little theory, but it's mainly tactics, and it works, and it's simple.
And you still use it.
10 years later,
he's become even more organized than me.
I mean, I've created lots of systems in my life that all stem from this. I mean, I have people that have said, I've learned project management the Blake Anderson way. Well, Blake Anderson learned it by reading David Allen, Getting Things Done. But it was the tactical side to what God was telling me about order and the importance of order if you want to prosper, right? So still, I don't know that he didn't call this thanks in order at this point. I'm still just like, this was very intangible. Thanks was very intangible. They're just loose Bible studies, just individual prayer days. Probably another month or two later, he has me go to John 5 and then John 12, and he taught me about honor. And Jesus said, he's telling the Pharisees, like, he tells them, I don't get honor from man. I get my honor from the Father. And here you just chase honor from each other, and you don't even know what the Father, you don't get honor from the Father, right? And you're more worried about fear of man than being honored by the Lord. And so God showed me like that is such an important key, not just that we fear the Lord, though the fear of the Lord is the beginning of the wisdom. We're huge proponents of that here, but that honor, if you want, like when God honors you, he opens doors no man can shut. He shuts doors he shuts doors no man can open. Like he makes it happen when you found favor in his sight, right? And I really believe that looks like, Jesus said, if you love me, you'll keep my commands. Okay. And he says the first commandment is to
love God and love others.
Yeah, love God like love God, heart, mind, and soul. And the second is like unto the first, that you would love others as yourself. And if you'll do those, then you'll get his honor. And when you have his honor, everything starts to work. And most people, and I included, because I'd had a business before, fail to do that because we're so focused on God. I need to get some man to approve of me. If I could just get someone to give me favor, then they'll sign a contract with me. Maybe someone will have pity on me and give me $10,000 or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Charity. Get someone to look at me, invest in me.
Well, that's honor of man, not honor of the Father. And what God is saying, no, go serve. You go serve other people, and then I honor you. So then another month or two later, the fourth came, and the fourth is yoked. And
when did you start knowing it was a pattern, though? Because I remember sometimes you'd come down and be like, babe, I got another one. I got another key. Like, when did you realize it was actually multiple keys?
This was when a yoked came. The first three were so deeply imprinted, but I didn't have names for them. I didn't know that what it was becoming. But by the third one, I started to be like, this is interesting. I got these three really profound things. And then one day he gave me the fourth. And the fourth is yoked. So it's Matthew 11:28. Jesus says, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light.
I love that.
Right? And that's so comforting. But he showed me the tactics that go with yoked. And really, it was about that time that we got introduced to a mentor of ours, Tom Capps. It's amazing how God was confirming this. Yes. The timing is incredible.
I remember that. Yep.
So we're trying to start a business, story for another day, and a mentor came to us to lead us through this process called Pray and Plan. And this was a retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, Tom Capps. And he wrote a book called Pray and Plan. And he met with our leadership team and spouses who were trying to create this business. And before we could even do this, he had to teach us certain things. And he taught us what he called God's division of labor. Yep. He didn't realize he was giving me the tactics to what God was calling yoked.
Yeah. It was within like a day or two.
This stuff was happening within days. And so when God would teach me this one thing, and then someone would come with get things done, or I was like, what? So yoked is about when you yoke to Christ, right? You're joining with him. And like Amos says, how can two walk together unless they be agreed? So there's agreement between God's will and what you're willing to do. But yoked is really about God's division of labor. You doing your part and allowing God to do his. And most people are trying to do God's part. And they're not, and they're so busy trying to do God's part, they don't do their own. And they wonder why it's not working. They're pulling against each other.
Right. He wants to help us with the heavy lifting that we can't do. And instead we're like, we got the weight of the world on our shoulders and wondering why we can't move and do anything and we're paralyzed.
Right. So if God has promised to provide for us, to love us, to protect us, to lead us, to guide us, well, what's left? Right. Well, Tom said, what's left is you need to be a good steward. You need to love God. You need to worship him, honor him, but you need to steward what he's given you and you need to multiply it. Like that's your part.
Yep.
And so you realize like God can't do your part.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things he can do, but he can't do your part.
Well, think about the parable of the talents. Like he didn't say, go find your own talents and then do something with them. He gave them such to this one and to that one. And then their job was to multiply it. Yeah.
So like if I was going to give you a check for $1 million,
I'd say, thank you.
You're right. But you didn't have a bank account, or let's say God,
you know where to put it. Yeah.
Where God, like I can't open your bank account for you. I can give you $1 million, but I can't open your bank account. God can promise to provide for you, but he can't open your bank account. He can promise to give you your car, but he can't get your driver's license for you.
So when he makes those promises, there's usually steps of obedience that are pretty clear, like take these natural steps to prepare the way.
To receive.
And that shows that by your faith, you're doing the works to show that you believe he's going to do it.
Right.
And you're prepared.
And that was so new because I'd been a business owner. I'd read so many leadership business marketing books. And I just felt like if it was me, if it was to be, it's up to me. I got to go do all these things.
Which is what a lot of them will teach you in a way. I mean,
and I wanted to believe.
Fancy language, but it boils down to you got to go after it.
I wanted to believe that God would provide for me, but I wasn't letting him provide for me because I was too busy trying to do his job and I wasn't doing my job. And so yoked is when you learn, you finally trust through faith that God is good at what he is good at, and he will do what he promises, but you have to be in position to receive it. Okay. And so probably if you're waiting on some provision, there's probably something you haven't prepared for. Right.
If something's out of order, or like you
Right.
start, because these are in order. They're
These
not
are in
just
order.
like random. Like, well, today I feel like being good at yoked, so I'm going to cast my cares on him. It's like, okay, but also, have you been thankful? Is everything in order that you can put in order? Have you,
No,
see,
that's exactly right. They are in a particular order, and I didn't know this was giving me. We say that thanks opens the door for more. First thing, gratitude, you open your heart, now you're ready to receive. Order makes room for more. If you got a house full of junk and someone wants to give you new furniture, there's no room for it, right? You put it in order to receive more, right? I love this. Steve Harvey tells a story about that car on blocks, right? He kept telling his mom, I'm going to get a new car. And his mom's like, well, what about your old car? And after a while, he understood, wait, I need to get the old car out of the way if I can bring a new one, right? Yeah. That's what order is. And then honor is about, puts you in the right direction. Get you thinking about loving and serving others. It's directional. Looking up and looking the right way. And then yoked.
Up first.
And then looking the right way. So my heart is ready. I'm humble. I'm ready for more. Order, I'm ready to move. Honor, I'm pointing in the right direction. Now yoked is about how we start moving together with God. Now, so yoked comes and I'm like, oh my gosh. This stuff there's something here. What is this?
It's so simple. All of it's so simple. It's not, there's nothing new under the sun.
No.
But it was so profound how he gave it to you as we were living it out.
Well, yeah. And so then confirmation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember that's when I said, hold on a second, God. This is a revelation. Like this is like a book or something. Like these are building on each other. Because once I got to yoked, you see yoked perfectly pulls the other three together. You can't really do yoked without the first three. And all of a sudden, the rest of the three that I'd learned before are like, oh my gosh, I got some. So that's when I said, well, what's going on? How many are there? And in that moment, I know that he told me, he said, there's 7. Well, what are they? And he gave me the names, but he didn't give me the revelation. He said, tithe, desire, thought. Now, I wasn't ready to receive the other revelation, but I knew, okay, I got 7 keys. I know the first 4. I know the names of the last 3. And so I just waited. And I just continued working on these other things. Here we are. We're still guessing, my dad's house, still in our Egypt season. But at this point,
Egypt.
Well, right. Wilderness. He had pulled us out of Egypt from Durham to Wake Forest. At this point, he had really kind of pulled Egypt off of us. Yeah. And now we were ready for him to really give us understanding of his ways. And so tithe, one day our pastor, Pastor Ray Smith, preached this message on tithe, and he gave this very clear understanding of tithe, and I just knew that that's confirmation of it, and I had the scriptures for that revelation. I understood tithe in a new way, and we've learned tithe even more, probably since. Through Gary Cassey. So great resource out there. Gary Cassey, he's got a 5-book series called Your Financial Revolution. It's really about understanding the kingdom, but a part of what he teaches is he gives a very clear understanding of the tithe. That thing's really helped us because there's a lot of people struggling with, they read this Bible verse, Malachi 3. Okay. Bring you the tithe in the storehouse, and I'll open up the windows of heaven, and I'll pour you out a blessing.
Do you have room
enough not to receive it, right? And there are some churches that kind of, they're not ready. They dismiss the tithe, or that's Old Testament, and then there's some churches that go too far on the tithe. It's like, religion on the tithe, which is if you tithe, then the winning lottery ticket would be in the mailbox, essentially. So what do we feel like we've learned about the tithe?
The tithe is just basic obedience. It's like it's the first fruits of what the Lord's given you. So there is a 10%, the tithe, of all of your increase that you give back to him. It's his in the first place. If you look at it that way, it's not really ours. He's given us the power to get wealth. So whatever we have comes from him. So we're really just out of obedience giving back to him the first fruits. So that's just step 1. But that doesn't necessarily bring all the blessing. That's just like, okay, you did what you were supposed to do. Then there's the offering. Then there's like your whole life being a living sacrifice.
And so the confirming scripture was one, I think in Leviticus, where that I didn't know about. I hadn't known about tithe, Malachi 3. Paul talks about tithe in the New Testament. But there's a scripture that says the tithe is holy. And that was really what did it for me. I understood that holy means it's set apart. Holy means it's God's. He said, it's holy, it's mine. So all of a sudden, you got to realize this first ain't even yours. The first is his. Okay? Now, Malachi 3 says, okay, you give him what's his, and he's going to open up heavens and pour out a blessing. Now, at the time, I still didn't understand this because you just believe, okay, I give him 10% and everything else is going to work out. That's all I got to know. And unfortunately, that isn't how it works. So here's the understanding of the tithe that Gary Cassie, I think, really helps explain. And I think will unlock for a lot of people. So I literally just had TikTok live last night. A young woman asked a great question. Single mom, 2 kids. I'm tithing and faithfully. I believe in God. My life's more of a mess now financially. What should I even tithe?
Yeah.
And here's what I share with her. What Gary Cassie taught us. That you got to think about the context of the tithe. So Malachi is the prophet. He is prophesying to an agrarian culture. These were farmers. And so when he says he's going to open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, they knew that meant rain.
Yeah.
They didn't expect gold bars to fall out of the sky. They expected rain on their crops for where they were.
Yeah.
They expected blessing for the works of their hands, because the Bible says that he'll bless the work of your hands, right? He teaches you how to get wealth, right? So you have a part to play in that, which is kind of back to this yoked thing. So tithe, you have to give him the tithe, but he can only rain on what you have planted.
Yeah.
And so if you planted in a small field next to a guy with a big field, you're both going to get the same amount of rain. The guy with the big field's going to get a big harvest because he's got a big field.
Yeah.
Small field's going to get a small harvest. There's a lot of people don't have any field because they're sitting inside
holding on to the
seed.
Plant it. Yeah.
Afraid to plant it, for they'll be disobedient, or really most of them are scared. To be honest with you, fear of going out there, of doing it wrong, of whatever, and they wonder why the tithe isn't bringing the blessing. Well, it might be God's favor is upon you, but you got to give him something to work with.
And he gives seed to the sower.
He does.
So
but if you eat the seed, then
you can't eat your seed. You have to plant it.
And the seed looks like multiple things. Obviously, it is money for sure. It's increase, but it's also your time. It's your attention. It's your intention. It's where you invest the most important things. So that was the tithe, and then
I just wanted to say, I feel like for me, a breakthrough moment was when we went to church and we literally laid our last dollar on the altar.
Yeah.
For, I don't know if at that point it was a tithe, an offering. It was all of the above in $1.
Yeah.
We didn't have money to put gas in the car to get home. We didn't have money for food. We had gotten to this place where we were so desperate for him and to see him come through, and he did. And then I remember another day after we got an inheritance when we gave a tithe check that was more than a lot of people's annual salary, surely bigger than what we had ever had. And so the tithe, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor. It's just step one, ground floor, basic obedience. You do it, and and believe that he is going to do what he says he does when we do that. But it's not maybe all that you hope, that you're going to see. There's other things tied to it. So what's next?
That's right. Desire. So then there's desire and thought, and those came pretty quickly together. And I don't remember the moments of them, but desire is about having a goal, having your intention on something, having something that you desire. It says, delight yourself in the Lord, he'll give you desires of your heart. And really what God was doing for me was removing the religious stronghold on that word desire. Too many of us cite this verse from that John the Baptist said, I must decrease so he can increase. And they don't understand how to live that.
Or I shall not want.
Or I shall not want.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. So we think we shouldn't want anything, but really that's just an older English way of saying I shall not lack.
Yeah, and it's really saying I shall not want really means I have everything I want. It means anything I don't lack anything. I have what I desire. So he's showing me he wants us to have the things we desire, but there's the alignment you're looking for is when you have an intimacy and union with God, when your desires are his desires. And you've kind of let go of all the Egyptian desires. It doesn't mean that you won't want a nice house or a nice car. It's the reason that you want these things.
You're not trying to do it to impress someone or to fill some empty space in you.
Like I remember when you had a car accident and we got you a new car, right? And we got a new one, and we got a nice one,
Mm-hmm.
right? We went from a Honda to an Infiniti.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't get the Infiniti because we were trying to impress people. We drove the ones, and it wasn't until you got in that one that you just were like, this is the one. And it didn't matter that it said Infiniti. It could have said Hyundai, Kia, Ford. It didn't matter. The fact is, once you got in that one, because we had driven some bunch of other ones, you're like, whoa, this is it. Like, some people say, well, you got a brand new vehicle, and is that, the right desire? Well, in that
I
moment,
actually
it was.
had a friend say that to me.
Really?
She's like, I would never buy a new car. What a waste. I was like, I didn't think I would either, but it was the right one.
You're right.
And I remember we
You
had a
wanted it for the right
conversation at the
reasons.
kitchen table, and you were talking about what we would get and what I wanted. And I was like, well, I don't really need like a brand new, nice luxury vehicle or anything. I just need like something that has a little bit more space for the next car seat and blah, blah, blah. And then we test drove stuff, and then that was the one.
Right.
And we knew it. There was like peace on it. So don't put limits on him.
Right. We wanted, and for me as a husband, I wanted to know that you were in a car you liked that was big enough for our growing family because we had another one on the way. So we're going to have 3, and it said 3 rows.
It was a head-on collision when I was 6 months pregnant,
Right.
so that wasn't fun. But
Right.
God
and
was in it. He used it for good.
The point is, in this desire, there's 2 things. There's 2 parts to it. One is the ultimate desire you're looking for is the expression of your purpose. Okay? Because you get joy when you do that.
Yeah.
But then the other part about desire is, like, God's not all hung up on stuff. We're the ones that are hung up on stuff. You buy something nice, it makes you happy for a reason, fine. You buy something nice because you're worried about what people say, that's the wrong reason. You're not free in that.
He wants
right?
your heart.
But here's where this is when I started to understand that these weren't in order. See, at this point, I didn't understand that these were in order.
You realized there were keys and that there were multiple, but not that there was an order to it.
They're in an exact order.
Well,
Okay.
that's like God.
Right. And here's how I knew it with desire. Because most of the success books you read, and really, really quick, this ain't really all that new. You'll find
Right.
most of these in a lot of success books out
As I
there.
was saying earlier, it's simple stuff, but it's like how specific.
Like,
he
I haven't
was.
found a good, like, really renowned success book or leadership book that would argue against any of this stuff. Okay.
And you've read them all.
And
I haven't.
I've read a
but
lot of
yes.
them, right? But this is a particular order, and I understand now when I got the desire, because here's the thing. When you desire first, before you've done the heart work,
Right.
you will likely desire things for the wrong reasons. And like James 4 gets into this. He said you ask, you have not because you ask not. And when you ask amiss because you're asking for your own lusts. Okay? So if you desire first before you do the heart work, you're
Out of
going
order.
to you want things because of lust, which is lack. I want someone to approve of me. I want
your
someone to
flesh.
see in your flesh, right? But when you live a life of gratitude, you live a life of being a great steward and keeping things in order. You live a life where you honor God and you're serving people first. You live a life where you allow God to co-labor with you in what you're doing. When you honor him with the first fruits of your substance, by the time you get to the point to want anything, all you want is loving, good, wonderful things. And sometimes they're new and sometimes they're used and sometimes you give it away and sometimes you charge money for it. It doesn't matter. It's pure and it's love.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about that because there's no sin left once you've done the work in this order.
Because when you're truly yoked to him, he knows you're not going to run off and try to veer over here for this shiny thing. It's like, you're walking in lockstep with him. You're following his lead. You're being obedient to him with your tithe. All these things, like you're with him.
And most of the
you're not gonna
material
go
things
awry.
that you want them to serve your mission.
Yeah.
Like we want a bigger home. But you and I both immediately think about what our mission and our call is with that home. I'm not trying to impress anybody, but we know we need to have a place to have people over because
Fellowship, hospitality,
you're a
engaging.
host.
Yeah.
You give people joy. You help change their lives by inviting them in your home. You cook for people.
discipling
You
people.
disciple people in our home. And we think of a larger place with a pool. We think about enjoyment there.
Practically, it's hot in North Carolina in the summer.
But I know immediately we're like, man, we got to make room for the good because we're excited about the purpose in front of us. And so it's okay to have nice things in the midst of it, especially when your heart is on alignment and there's just love and purity for it, right?
But I feel like it's a wilderness mindset and a poverty mindset to say, well, we just have to keep everything small and just hunker down and batten down the hatches and
Give all to
spend
charity,
less.
give
And if I
all.
do have anything, I'm going to give it away. But yet I don't have anything, but I have to make peace with that. I mean, it's such a, like the religious spirit just winds us all up into a knot.
And there's no
And
creativity there.
yeah, you can't stay there. I mean, he is an expansive God. He wants to put wealth into our hands so that we can bless, so that we can build his kingdom. It's kind of hard to do that when you're always just trying to figure out how to pay the next light bill.
Right. And families like us who feel called to have people around us that we're loving on, discipling, and hosting, you can't do that living in a one-bedroom apartment. There are some people's call, that's all you need. That's fine. I'm not saying everybody should want a large home. But if you do, and it's associated with your mission, your call, like you don't have to think twice about it, right? So then finally there was thought. And with thought, he really opened my mind to the power of our mind, to neuroscience, to neuroplasticity, to how our brains and our minds are wired, to the subconscious mind, to where our faith really understands, knowing that what you expose yourself to and your environment is changing the way you think about things, the people you hang out with.
Yes.
Like where's when he, and so that key scripture was Proverbs 23:7 says, as a man thinketh, so is he. He really wanted me to understand this is an inside-out journey.
Yes.
Our outside reality is the product of our inside reality. And
Which
so
is kind of where we started.
that's how we started.
Becoming on the inside what you want to see and do on the outside.
And so once you get to this point, you understand thought, everything originates in your thinking. So you need to take it seriously.
The things that are seen come from that which is unseen. You can't see a thought, but you can surely see, like if I have a thought of something I want to draw, well, I can't draw, but my kids and he can. But you have an image first of what you want to create, and then you create it. So it came from what was unseen.
Yeah, and so you start to be very careful about what you think about and not think about. You take thoughts captive. You let things go. You spend more time on certain thoughts, right? You got to rewire how you think about yourself, how you think about God, how you think about others.
Think on these things, things
right.
that are lovely, that are pure.
And then, so what happens is, one, thought helps you rewire your identity. And oh, by the way, you're going to need to do this multiple times.
Daily, hourly, by the minute
that's right.
sometimes, yeah.
But then also every new level you need, or you're trying to get to in life, or he wants to take you to, you're going to have to rewire your identity for that next level first. And thought also just kind of, the activity of thought keeps you, it's the calibration system that keeps you pointing in the right direction. So like if you're in an airplane, you're flying from Los Angeles to Hawaii, people don't realize the plane is off course 93% of the time. Because of the winds, it's blowing it around. It's the GPS system that is making micro corrections all the time. Every time it gets off, it's corrected, it's corrected, so that it arrives at its correct destination on time. And that's what thought is for us, is to be the GPS navigation system that's always correcting us to keep us on our path so we arrive at the destination when we're supposed to be there.
It's like pray without ceasing. You're continually and you can have repentance in your thoughts, like, forgive me, Lord, for having that thought and dwelling on this thing that I don't want or that I don't like or that I fear, and just course correct. And I feel like, there's almost lines. These are in an order, but if you think, like, if you have a toxic thought and you're like, I don't have enough, there's lack here, whatever, you can go back to thanks in your thoughts. Give thanksgiving for what you do have, even if it's not everything you want right now. It's like, thank you that I have a roof over my head. Thank you that I had a meal this morning. Thank you, whatever it is, you can, or go put something in order. You start thinking about how there's so many things you have to do. How am I going to accomplish it? And you have this firestorm going on in your brain. Go put a drawer in order. That's that every time you open it, it bothers you because you can't find the thing you're looking for, and you poke yourself on this thing that's out. So these things work together. That's just a simple illustration. But
no, you're right. It's like you're going to learn them step by step, almost mechanically. Just like whenever you learn any compound movement, you break it up into micro steps, right? But ultimately, once you learn them all really well, you start to live them effortlessly and fluid, and you don't know where one ends and the other begins because you're just living this prosperous life. You feel the grace and the freedom on what you're doing.
Yeah, and when we talk about there's freedom in Christ, but most of us haven't experienced that enough to really talk, where we live in that flow where it's just like, okay, I don't have to worry about every last little thing. Should I eat this or that? Just, what should I do, Lord? We're paralyzed in religion. It's like, no, once all this is in order, you have the mind of Christ. You're renewing your mind continually so that you have discernment to know which step to take, and you don't have to fret and worry and fear and stay in that paralysis.
Yeah. So as we kind of close this conversation, this tells a story where this come from. Some of our folks might say, "This is really good. Where in the world did this come from? Did you just aggregate this
Made it up.
from, or did you just read a bunch of success books and pull it out? Because you could guess what? I mean, this was before Chat GBT, right? Right? You could almost like Chat GBT, give me 7 keys to prosper. It wouldn't. But the point is, if you didn't know where it came from, it might be easy to jump to this conclusion.
Yeah.
We didn't, just ask Chat to give us 7 keys to change our life. Like, God changed our life and then the door opened, right? And so just kind of in closing, what do you feel like this way of living has done for us? And what's the hope for folks who think, maybe this could be my way?
I feel like we have so much more peace.
Yeah.
Because we have a perspective that it's like an aerial view.
Yeah.
And it's more of an eternal perspective, because sometimes we can get so caught up in the dailiness of this challenge and that problem and all these things we're facing. In poverty, I feel like it's just this heavy yoke on us that everything feels like a big decision, because it's like, well, if I buy this, there's not for that. And I mean, we have to move in our mindset, we have to move in our heart up and out of these things that want to keep us pulled down in the daily struggle and drudgery. And he wants us to live that free, abundant life. And so with this, it's like, and so many other things he's shown us, it's like he's pulling us up and out of our own flesh, up and out of our own ways of thinking, up and out of those old neural pathways that are so deeply ingrained in there that we're so familiar with, and we don't even realize there's a problem.
Yes, right.
Until we keep getting these terrible results and wonder, like, something's got to give. Like, what's the problem? We're the problem.
Yeah, that's right.
Our bad thinking, our toxic thinking is the problem. Our unhealed, unrepentant heart is the problem. It's all in here. So rather than like looking, that's the other thing. It's made us look more here than out here, to blame and cast blame, and doubt. So it's an internal job, and we see external fruit, and that's a beautiful thing. And there's so much more.
Yeah. I think what they've done for me, so we're 10 years in. I mean, they've obviously made a lot possible. Our life's dramatically different than it was when he first gave us. But here, I've kind of touched on this in a couple conversations recently. 2025 wasn't the year I thought it would be, but it was the year I needed. I feel like a lot of the goals I have for 2026, I had at the beginning of 2025. And I remember at the end of December being like, what in the world happened? Why didn't I accomplish that? And then, kind of spending some time with the Lord, he was like, so much happened.
Yeah.
He helped me lay the groundwork for all these new things. And really, that's what the keys have done. Like, I have an incredible amount of confidence because I know how it works. Because I know this gives me, like, I know how to stay in alignment with his will. Right? And so, like, when you're in alignment with his will, you're going to move forward. And if you're not moving forward, there's something really important that's happening. And so 2025, I didn't move forward, but we put roots down that are making things that are already starting in 2026 very possible.
Yeah.
And I think the keys just, they show you the way to live the way of love, to live the way of peace, and then to begin to have confidence, because I don't call these laws, but they might as well be. Like, it's not a law because you can't do them individually and get the result. But it is a way. The way is the way of the kingdom. When you do it this way, it just works. And so we just know.
It should be the 7 keys to prosper in the kingdom of God.
Right. We know if we just keep these in order, it's like at any point in time, something's off, you start back at the beginning. Now, we've done this long enough, we can recalibrate pretty quickly, right? And we can check each other and recalibrate the whole family within moments, because we know how to order these up.
Out of order.
And then things start moving forward. And now when I think about our future, I don't worry about what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen because I know how to walk in his way.
It's a pattern.
It's a pattern. I know how to co-labor with him. I know how to give him things to bless. I know how to align my desire with his, and I know how to keep calibrated. And I know that he's always taking me to new places, which will take new calibration. That's okay. It's not always easy. Even now, even in the promised land, there's still hard ground to till. There's still giants you got to slay. But you're blessed. You're doing the work that makes you come alive. You're becoming the person that he wants you to become, and you're on your way to greater things.
Yeah. And that confidence comes from Christ, because the more that you do these things and you understand his ways and you're in your word and you're seeing stories of people in the Bible who lived these things out, and you're starting to live them out, and he's coming through, and you're seeing him provide, and you're seeing miracles, and you are changing, and you're noticing your spouse, like, hopefully that there's fruit in them. Like, you just start to have that confidence that, like, okay, this works. So many things that we read about in self-help books and, try this new miracle, whatever, it doesn't work. Either we're not ready, or the thing wasn't really a gimmick in the first place. They could maybe, but there's a disconnect somewhere.
Things can't work on the outside until you're ready for them on the inside.
Yeah.
And this is what the keys do. They help you get your heart in position to change your life on the outside for the circumstances to change. I mean, I think that's worth restating in a summary form, that a lot of people have written good books, and a lot of you are trying books and wondering why they're not working. And it may not be that it's the wrong information. It just may be that your heart's not ready for it.
Might be out of season.
Might be out of season, out of sync.
Right now.
Right? So I think this was a great conversation.
Thanks for having me on, Blake.
Yeah, so we got to tell a lot more stories. I really, appreciate our community that is watching. Feel free to comment, reach out with a DM. We're going to continue to tell stories, spend more time together, spend time with you, help you. I mean, as you maybe wonder, like, why are you doing this? Like, we're not getting paid. I'm not selling this.
Don't we have an offer?
Yeah, right. No, the thing is, like, when you find your way out of the pit and you come out on the other side, you can't help but just say, I got to go find the person who's stuck in the place that I found my way out of.
You can't stand to see someone.
You can't stand to see someone.
No.
So let us know how we can help. So God bless you. We'll see you next episode.